Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, the approval of the proposed 5.7 trillion national budget for 2024 is now in the hands of President Bongbong Marcos. But Senate Minority Leader Koko Pimentel is questioning the multi-billion peso increase in the budget's bill's unprogrammed appropriations, which he calls unconstitutional. And the House of Representatives is set to revive the push for charter change next year. Will the proposal get the same support from senators? Senate Finance Committee Chairperson Sonny Angara joins us in the program. The proposed national budget for 2024 now awaits the signature of President Bongbong Marcos after Congress approved the budget bill for next year, bringing it one step closer to becoming a law. But lawyer and Senate Minority Leader Koko Pimentel sees grounds to question the budget in the Supreme Court as he raises alarm over what he calls an unconstitutional 450 billion peso hike made by the Bicameral Conference Committee to unprogrammed appropriations. Pimentel says the increase brings the budget to 6 trillion pesos, higher than the original 5.768 trillion proposal. Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have Senate Finance Committee Chairperson Sonny Angara. Senator, it's good to see you again. Welcome to the source, sir.
Good morning, Pinky. Thank you for having me on the show.
So, that actually is my first question. Well, is it a 6 trillion budget, sir? Or is it a 5.768 trillion budget?
Well, it's programmed to be a 5.768 trillion budget, Pinky. I think what the issue being raised by the Minority Leader of the Senate, Senator Koko Pimentel, is the standby appropriations. Meaning, that's not been programmed. It's called unprogrammed because it will only come into play if the government's revenues are above target. Usually, that's how you fund it. So, yung sa programmed appropriations of around 5.7 trillion, you're sure to fund that. But that's why it's called a standby or unprogrammed. It's not part of your program, but in case your revenues are better than expected or targeted, then you can fund those appropriations.
Now I understand.
It's a standby appropriation.
Okay, because that's what I wanted to find out, exactly what are unprogrammed funds. So basically, gawin po natin sa bahay, sa pamilya, meron po kayong budget, buwan-buwan, pero kapag kumita kayo ng extra, ito yung tinatawag na unprogrammed appropriations at dito pwede pumunta itong kinita ninyo dahil surplus siya nung inyong buwanang kita.
Yes, that's correct. Pia, parang, Pinky, if you want to use that analogy, that's a good analogy actually because siguro yung program, yun yung priority mo at saka yun yung talagang kailangan mong i-prioritize sa gastusin. And let's say that's the tuition, that's your electricity bills, your food. And then you say siguro pagka nakakuha ko ng bonus, then pwede tayong bumili ng trip abroad or mag-ayos tayo ng bahay, something like that. No?
Opo.
It's not part, you haven't, it's not definite for the year. It depends, there's a condition, it's conditional on your revenue or tax collections, Pinky.
Okay, so is it clear, sir, that the budget that was passed, rather, by the bicameral conference, ratified by both houses of Congress, is still 5.768, and it's not over 6 billion?
Yes, that's what the government is preparing for. But in case revenues are above target, then you can fund. The Congress has appropriated or authorized the executive branch to spend this much. It's like it prevents you from having to enact a supplemental budget. Parang because we know the process of legislating or enacting budgets takes time. So imagine if you discover at the end of the year that, or by November of 2024, that your targets or your tax collection is above target, and you decide, oh, by the way, I want to propose to Congress that please authorize me to spend, the executive branches, please authorize me to spend an additional amount. That will take time. That's why the standby or the unprogrammed fund is there. Just in case we do better than expected, then we are authorized by Congress to spend that, and Congress has appropriated the money for these purposes.
Senator, here's the question on that, though. Wasn't the original budget for the unprogrammed appropriations just over 200, or it was about 281 billion as proposed by the executive or the office of the president. And then, according to Senator Pimentel, the BICAM bloated the 281 to 731 billion, an increase of 450 billion pesos. Number one, is this true? And why such a substantial increase?
Yes, the figures are true, Pinky. Again, it's a standby appropriation, meaning we don't know how the government is going to do, because there's, in the economy, in the world, there's uncertainty. So you don't really know if 2024 will be a good year, a great year, and you can't. It's not an exact science to predict how much taxes the government will be able to collect. There's an estimate, no, but that's why you have your programmed appropriations, because you predict that you can collect at least this much, and then perhaps you'll borrow a certain amount to fund your projects for next year, and then you have the standby appropriations just in case revenues or funding proves better than expected.
Yeah.
Then you have it's like a menu. Then okay, so I got my salary, and maybe it's payday, so I can order more than it's like a menu. The standby appropriations or a program fund is like a menu, Pinky, no? So the government can order or choose
tap from that. Yeah, it's a menu that the government can tap.
Yeah, it's like a menu that the government can choose. Okay, I have extra revenue, so I think I'll fund this one. So it's actually the executive has certain amount of elbow room or leeway there
For certain adjustments. But the question still is, why that big of an increase? Bakit po, sino pong nag-isip na dagdagan natin ito ng 450 billion dun sa unprogrammed appropriations during the BICAM, sir?
Yes.
Sino po nag-isip nun?
I think we already added some during the Senate version, and I think maybe the House might have added some already. But actually, the unprogrammed fund is even smaller this year than it was last year. Last year it was 800 plus billion, Pinky. Now it's 700 plus billion. So.
Okay, so compared to last year, in fact, Senator Pimentel was saying this is actually the second year na umabot na or lumampas na po ng 6 trillion, because he was counting also 2023 actually this year, dahil meron din daw pong unprogrammed funds, to which you're saying mas malaki pa yung this year than next year. Okay.
Yes, and also the unprogrammed fund is nothing new, Pinky. It's been there for, I think, the last 2 decades. So I think what changes like this year, it's been growing over time. I think this is also a sign of a growing economy, and it's part of the Philippine growth story that in case our collections, which have been growing, and if based on 2023 where they were above target, then there's a good chance that some of these projects will be funded, even though it's just an unprogrammed or standby appropriation.
Senator, give us an example. As you mentioned a while ago, this has been a practice in the past that there is this unprogrammed appropriations from the time that you have been a lawmaker. Tell us, for the most part, where these unprogrammed funds are used. Siguro as of late, sir.
Well, it's used for the same programs that the government already has for existing programs of the government, meaning for infrastructure, for education, for some of the social services programs. It's nothing really out of the ordinary, Pinky. It just allows the government to expand its reach and expand its services.
Then please respond to this, that the Senator Pimentel is saying it could be unconstitutional, referring to this Section 6, Article 6 rather, Section 25 of the Constitution, which states that Congress may not increase the appropriations recommended by the President for the operation of the government as specified in the budget. The form, content, and manner of preparation of the budget shall be prescribed by law. In fact, he went on to say that you can approve, you can reduce, but you cannot increase. Could you respond to that, sir?
Yeah, I think that refers to the program, because definitely that's the one proposed by the executive, and the standby is appropriations. That's part of our tripartite system of government, Pinky. We have the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary, and there are checks and balances between the three branches of government. And the rationale of this constitutional provision is to prevent overspending, basically. prevent the legislature from authorizing too much spending on the part or forcing the executive to spend beyond its means. Meaning, it's the executive who should be in control of the spending or the execution of the budget. The role of the Congress is to authorize or appropriate the money for spending. And in this case, when you talk about the unprogrammed appropriations, that's within the control of the executive because they can choose within that menu which ones will be funded, and they're the ones who are releasing the money, and the conditions are largely dependent on executive action. Pinky.
Are you worried that this could be questioned before the Supreme Court? I ask that because the Senator Pimentel, the minority leader rather, was saying this is a possibility. But again, and then I go back to what you earlier said, that this has been done in the past. But again, just because it's been done in the past, it doesn't mean it cannot be questioned. So I go back to my question, sir. Are you concerned that it could be questioned and deemed unconstitutional?
Well, anything can be questioned in the Supreme Court, Pinky, and that's part of our, again, we were talking about the three branches of our government. That's part of the role of the judiciary. If there are legal questions or legal issues that need to be settled definitively, then definitely a case can be lodged and it could be questioned. But again, if you look at the intent of the provision, it's really to prevent congressional overreach and to prevent the executive from spending beyond its means. But that concern is not present in the case of the unprogrammed fund because the executive still has a lot of elbow room when it comes to the menu, so to speak, of the unprogrammed fund or the standby appropriation.
Senator, is the contingent funds part of this unprogrammed funds or unprogrammed appropriation?
No, that's different. That's different, Pinky. Contingent fund now refers to a certain fund that is under the power of the executive branch to supplement any agency of government that in case there's a contingency during the middle of the year that was unforeseen when Congress passed the budget, then the executive can supplement the budget and release to programs of the government.
So hiwalay po siya.
In case there's a new law passed, it can fund that law, for instance. That's one example, Pinky.
All right, we just need to take a very short break. We're going to talk about confidential intelligence funds and, of course, the kind of addition, the funds for protecting the West Philippine Sea. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Senate Finance Committee Chairperson Sonny Angara. Senator, where is the budget now? When will it be transmitted to the President?
Well, the budget is in the printing stage, Pinky, and it will be transmitted probably in the next few days to the Office of the President, and usually the Office of the President takes a few days to review it, and of course, they also have the right to veto any of the provisions they don't feel are proper or appropriate. And I think we're targeting the signing by the President next week.
Okay. I think he leaves for Japan this Friday, if I'm not mistaken. So possibly, pagbalik na po niya. Senator Sonny, is there...
Originally we were targeting... Originally we were targeting before he left, but I think... that's no longer doable. So perhaps as soon as he comes back, he will sign it.
Yeah, you were saying, of course, that the President has the power to veto any part of the budget. Ano po? Are you seeing any possible problems or that the President, any portions of the budget that the President may veto?
Historically, there are always provisions which the President vetoes, Sometimes agencies, for instance, want to ask for the power to realign or the power to spend some of their funds, because some agencies have the power to collect fees, for instance, and then some, want to be able to have greater freedom in the usage of these fees. But of course, from the government's point of view, they want a central dispersing authority, so they don't want. They want to be able to predict. We were talking about government revenues earlier, Pinky. Of course, from the government standpoint, they want predictability in terms of collection. So usually there are a few of these provisions which which are subjected to conditional implementation or to veto.
Confidential and intelligence funds. To be clear, sir, pagdating ho ba ng BICAM, wala ho bang na-restore na confidential funds from what the small committee at the House had reallocated, for example, the OVP, the DepEd, yung sa DepEd po of 150, tinanggal po as confi funds pero inilagay po sa isang, at the House, they put it dun sa voucher. Pero sa Senate, I remember, nakiusap po si Vice President Sara Duterte kung pwede ilagay dun sa National Recovery Program. Balikan ko lang po, wala ho bang, yung ginawa ho ba ng small committee ng House, natuloy po sa BICAM?
Hindi namin binago, Pinky, no, yung ginawa ng House or the proposal of the House in the General Appropriations Bill when it got to us. So meaning they realigned, made some realignments in the confidential funds of some of the offices you mentioned and some other offices, Pinky, no? And we by and large abided or respected those realignments, and we did not add to the existing confidential funds and intelligence funds in the budget.
We're talking about, the DICT, sir, the DA even, the OVP, the DepEd, and there's still another department. I just wanted to find out, was there an appeal during the BICAM, sir, from some lawmakers to restore any of the confidential funds to any of the departments that lost it?
Well, there was a bit of a discussion with respect to the DICT because the DICT was appealing for some funds for certain programs, and I think confidential funds was one of those discussed. But in the end, we augmented the budget of the DICT at the BICAM. But it's not lodged under confidential funds.
Yeah.
It's funds for
MOOE.
cybersecurity
Yeah.
and for other purposes.
Yung magkakaroon po ng siguro resibo, kumbaga. Sir, I don't know if you would be able to answer me because this is also a concern. It's 150 million pesos confidential fund supposedly for the DepEd. At the small committee at the lower house, they moved this to the voucher program, and then as I mentioned a while ago in the Senate, I think it was Senator Pia Cayetano speaking as a sponsor for the OVP. Parang gusto po nila ilagay, for the DepEd rather, gusto nila ilagay sa Learning Recovery Program doon po sa PISA. As revealed very recently, no, medyo kulelat po tayo. Would you be able to confirm if dito po nilagay doon sa National Recovery Program yung 150 million?
Well, the House was insistent that its amendment be respected, for its amendments for the DepEd be respected. So I think that remained unchanged also, same with the issue on the confidential funds.
I see.
So the House's realignments were by and large unchanged.
All right. WPS, I was looking into this, sir. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Ang nangyari ho ba dito, 10 billion pesos addition? Specifically, I think it's 6 billion to the Department of National Defense for the Philippine Navy, and then about 3 billion for the Philippine Coast Guard, and then there's about a billion for NICA. Ito ho ba ay dagdag po doon sa kanilang pondo?
Yes, I think the amounts are rounded off. I think are by and large correct, Pinky. But it's not just West Philippines. It's really to augment or to improve the state of our armed forces, given what's happening in the world today. We're just I think it's just a prudent decision. No?
And the top agencies.
And this is also the advocacy of our leader in the chamber, Senate President Zubiri. He's standing orders to the committee where really as much as possible, let's do what we can to help our armed forces and our Coast Guard, our Philippine Air Force, our Navy, our Army, and our people who are at the front lines to be able to have some confidence that in case things don't turn out as we want or there are unfavorable outcomes, then at least there is a certain degree of preparation.
While we're on the topic, sir, I wanted to get your reaction. I haven't really heard from you, at least from what I seen, no, and read. Your reaction on what's happened between, well, the Philippines and China, especially with the two successive incidents last weekend, wherein our boats were water cannoned, and then dangerous maneuvers, and then there was harassment and aggressive behaviors. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, Pinky, this is nothing new, no? This is just the latest in a series of actions by the Chinese Coast Guard against some of our ships, and I think we're just exercising our rights under international law. We're entitled to right of safe passage. This is part of our EEZ, or exclusive economic zone. So I think, but we're also consistent in the sense that we don't want things to escalate, but we're doing things the legal way. No? So tama yung ginagawa ng DFA. We're doing the protests, but as you know, international law is not the most certain of areas, because there's no central enforcement body, di ba? Unlike in a country, you can go to the police, you can go to the courts to enforce your rights. Sa international law, you have a United Nations, but it's not an enforcement body, but and also China is sitting on the Security Council. So you have to be very skillful in your use of diplomacy, in your use of the tools in your foreign policy arsenal, Pinky. No? So tama naman yung ginagawa ng ating gobyerno, and the president, I think, is sending the right signals through his Secretary of DFA, Secretary Manalo, and by calling the Chinese ambassador and then telling him that the Philippines is not pleased with these actions, and that it doesn't help bilateral relations between our countries. So, and tayo naman, because of the disparity in the power relations, we're also trying to have a multilateral approach through the UN naman, and through the enforcement of our arbitral decision win.
Our win in 2016. Do you support Senate President Mig Zubiri's statement that the Chinese ambassador to the Philippines leave the country? Senator JV, I had him yesterday, sabi niya, ang gusto niya, palitan si Ambassador Wang Zhilian. And then you have Senator Tolentino saying that dapat yung ambassador natin sa China ay i-recall na lang po dito sa Pilipinas. Ano ho yung inyong saloobin with all these proposals from your co-senators?
Si Senator Ejercito revealed that I think in an interview, I think yesterday or the other day, that the Chinese ambassador was dinuduro daw yung ating AFP
Chief of Staff.
He was pointing, dinuduro, meaning he was pointing at him, etc. So parang these are not very diplomatic actions or actuations. So maybe that should be considered by, of course, Beijing is a sovereign state and they have their own policies. Pero parang hindi maganda yung nangyaring ganon. Sana hindi ganon, because it doesn't help or it doesn't help de-escalate the situation. Di ba? Parang mainit na nga ang ulo ng mga tao. Tapos may ganong actions pa. So I don't think those are very good actions on the part of a diplomat.
And what should be done? I did have Senator JV yesterday. Sabi ko nga, can you please explain anong sinabi sa iyo ni General Bronner? Ang sabi niya sa akin, ganun nga, tama po yung sinabi niyo, Senator Sonny, dinuduro po siya. And stop provoke. Ano ho ba yung exact words na sinabi? Don't provoke us. Ganun, don't provoke us. Ganun daw yung kanyang sinabi.
It was during the BICAM kasi, Pinky. That was the day had an executive session with the security forces, the Senate, and unfortunately we were in the middle of the BICAM discussions. I was not able to attend that executive session. I think it was last Monday or last Tuesday,
Opo.
if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, just very quickly on this, still on the West Philippine Sea, no? Naglagay ho ba ng funds as proposed by Senator Chis Escudero to possibly build a structure in Ayungin Shoal? I believe he initially mentioned around 100 million. Meron ho bang nalagay para dito?
Yes, there's funding there, Pinky, for funds. So may pupuntahan din yung ating mga barko kung sakali. Nandoon po yun.
Which agency yung napunta po ito, sir? Would you know?
I'm sorry?
Anong ahensya po? Kasi itong 100 million pesos para po dun sa structure sa Ayungin Shoal, saang ahensya po ito napunta? Would you know?
I think it's not DPW, it's AFP or DND. But I have to double check that, Pinky. Because there's so many items that
Yeah, I can imagine.
that were augmented or supplemented. So
Okay.
I have to double check exactly the details of that.
Okay. And again, another break. We will be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Senate Finance Committee Chairperson Sonny Angara. Senator, marami pa pong tanong, mabilisan na lang po. The House is talking about Cha-Cha, and they said that this could be ready before the President's State of the Nation address in July. Number one, sir, what is your stand on Cha-Cha?
But I think for the economic provisions, we have an open mind on that. No, even for let's say if we want to extend the terms of the congressman or the local officials, I'm also open to that because I think 3 years is probably too short. No, because parang kaka-election lang natin, and then now we're next year will be a pre-election year, so it's really very quick that 3 years goes by very fast, given that we don't have the fastest moving bureaucracy. So if you want to have some programs implemented, 3 years sometimes is not.
Yeah.
I think 4 or 5 years would be a better term of office.
Which is their proposal.
So those are the things I think that perhaps could be talked about and debated, and we have to consult the public also as to how they feel about these issues. Because of course, the public is always sensitive to the possibility that term limits might be lifted, things like that, term extension. But although I think in the case of the president, I don't think he's interested in extending his term at all. Thinking.
Okay, sir, to clarify, no, you're okay with term limits, especially sa mga congressman, kasi napag-uusapan naman po yan. 3 years, 3 terms, 9 years. Yung 3 years bago ka makaupo, naghahanda ka na rin daw para sa susunod na election. So you're okay dun sa nasasabi nilang 5 plus 5. Quick question, sir. What about the president? Are you okay with a 5 plus 5 as well?
You know, I have to think about that one, Pinky, because the president is so powerful that I mean, you know, his re-election is it's an unfair. That second election will be somewhat of a very unfair in terms of power and resources. Although, if you look historically, it was until the senior President Marcos won in re-election. Previous Philippine presidents had lost their re-election, if I'm not mistaken, Pinky. You know, so it's an interesting question, and that's really worth debating.
Okay.
Of course, because of our recent history, we understand also why some people feel that perhaps there's a need for just a single term.
All right.
But if you look at other countries, I think many of them allow maybe one re-election. So these are the things that I think will enter or factor into the discussion.
Senator Sonny Angara, sir, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me, Pinky. Good morning.
Good morning, sir, and thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.